right, today we're jumping into the truly incredible story of a figure who embodies a massive spiritual paradox, Virabhadra Prabhu.
So get this. Right out of the gate, we're faced with this huge contradiction. How can somebody be the supreme Godhead, but at the same time live as a humble devotee? This single line really sets the stage for everything we're about to explore.
So, to really get a handle on who he was, we've got to unpack this whole God in disguise idea. We're going to look at who he was on a divine level, and then see how that completely contrasted with how he carried himself here on earth.
I mean, his spiritual lineage is just wow. He was the son of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, who is a central figure in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, and his mother was Srimati Vasudha Devi. He was also the disciple of Sri Jahannavan Mata. But here's the real kicker, that last point. He was considered an incarnation of Kshirodakasaya Vishnu. That's a direct expansion of the Godhead. So for his followers, he wasn't just some respected teacher, he was literally divinity walking the earth.
And this slide, man, it just lays out that core conflict so perfectly. On one hand, you have his divine identity. He knew internally that he was the supreme Lord Vishnu, that he was totally beyond any earthly rules. But then you have his earthly demeanor. He was described as completely prideless, just a humble servant who strictly followed every single ritual, that technically he was above. It's such a powerful statement on what true humility and devotion look like.
Now you might think all this internal complexity would keep him in one place, right? Nope. In fact, it's what kicked off the next major chapter of his life, the Great Pilgrimage, a journey that would come to define his entire public influence.
And so it begins. And you gotta love this detail, he takes permission from his mother first. I mean, here he is, this revered spiritual leader, an incarnation of God, and he still follows the simple customs of respect. It just reinforces that humble devotee side of him we were just talking about. And his destination? Vrindavana, one of the most sacred places in all of his faith.
And look, this wasn't just a straight shot from A to B. His path was more like a grand tour of all these major spiritual hubs, Saptagram, Santipur, Navadvipa, Ketudi, before he finally reached his goal. And every single stop along the way was its own major event.
And that's a perfect lead into our next part here, because this pilgrimage, it wasn't just some solo trip. It became this powerful way of connecting and energizing the entire community of devotees all along his path. Yeah, he wasn't just some tourist passing through. No way. Every single place he went, the absolute top spiritual leaders would come out to greet him. His arrival was a huge deal, a moment of real spiritual significance for everyone who was there.
Just to give you a picture of what this was like, think about his arrival in Kituri. The great teacher Sri Narottama Thakura hears he's on his way and, the text says, comes out in great ecstasy to meet him. And what happens next? A huge celebration. We're talking congregational chanting, ecstatic dancing. It just shows you the pure joy and deep respect his presence brought out in people.
And get this, his influence didn't just stop with believers. The stories say his presence was so powerful that even people who were considered sinful or atheistic, they were completely transformed, delivered by just meeting him. So in a very real way, his journey was also a mission.
So after this epic journey, stopping at all these important places, he finally arrives. And his arrival in Vrindavana, well, that's the absolute peak of this story. This is the big moment.
Seriously, just try to picture this. The news starts spreading like wildfire through Vrindavana. Virabhadra Prabhu is here. And we're not talking about a small welcome party. The most revered, the most respected saints living there, they all drop what they're doing and come out to greet him personally.
And just look at this list of who came to welcome him. We're talking about the heavy hitters here. Jiva Goswami, Krishnadasa Kaviraj Goswami. I mean, these are basically the theological giants of the tradition. For them to come out and welcome him like this, it tells you everything you need to know about the incredible respect he commanded.
And for Virabhadra himself, you can just imagine, this was everything. The texts say he was just overwhelmed with ecstatic love. He's walking through these sacred forests, visiting these holy sites, and his spiritual emotion is so real, so powerful, that it just captivated everyone who laid eyes on him.
Okay, so after this amazing journey, what's the takeaway? What's his legacy? Well, that brings us to our final section, and it's a big one, the pillar of devotion.
This metaphor is just perfect. He's called the main pillar in the hall of devotional service. Now think about that for a second. What does a pillar do? It holds everything up. It provides strength, support, stability. That's how he was seen, as the key figure keeping the entire movement started by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu strong and steady.
And in the end, his legacy is something that's still felt today all around the world. I mean, this quote says it all. It's because of him, because of his mercy, that people everywhere now have the chance to chant the names of Chaitanya and Nityananda. He really helps take this core practice global.
And that really brings us full circle, right back to that paradox we started with. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. How does a leader who is both a god and a humble servant manage to shape the future of an entire faith? The story of Virabhadra Prabhu seems to suggest that maybe, just maybe, it's that exact combination, that divine authority mixed with that relatable humility that creates a legacy that truly lasts. Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this one.